I have a favorite question that appears in the Bible. You know, most of the questions that appear in the New Testament are from people who are trying to trick Jesus, who are trying to get him to say something that's un-Jewish, not consistent with Jewish customs and laws. But there's one question that I look at and I go, oh man, if I lived in the first century, that's exactly what I'd ask Jesus. And the question goes like this: who is my neighbor? And I have a feeling, obviously I wasn't there, but I have a feeling the conversation was, listen, Jesus, you tell me to love my neighbor. Who's my neighbor? Really what I want you to do is to tell me where are the limits on my love. I get that the person who lives next door to me, I get that that's my neighbor, but what about the person around the street and down the corner who I've only seen cutting their lawn and we wave at each other? Is that my neighbor? Do I have to care about that person? What about the people at work or my son's friend's parents? Do I have to care about them too? And Jesus responds with the story of the Good Samaritan, and that story's been interpreted over and over again, but the gist of it is he tells us that anyone whose life intersects with our life is someone we have to love and care about. That's a huge thing. Anyone whose path intersects with your path is someone, in effect, that you're responsible for. That includes the woman that serves you every morning at the coffee shop. I said coffee shop in particular because our story today takes place at a breakfast restaurant.
904, marking on the back.
Every town, every city in America has a place like the Goody Goody Omelet House here in Wilmington. I'm talking about a locally owned establishment where the food is great and the tables are hard to come by. But our story today takes place several hours earlier, when there's only one car in the parking lot and one person inside. Meet the owner, 86-year-old Mrs. Mayu.
I come in at 2
Do you really?
a.m. I get up at midnight.
And you're here for the most part alone until he gets here?
I'm alone till he gets here.
He is David Akins. Mr. Akins isn't on the payroll, nor is he related to the family. He's just a loyal customer. And for 15 years now, 15 years every morning, this retired firefighter and former contractor shows up at 4 a.m. not to eat, but to help out. On this particular morning, he's in charge of cooking the gravy.
Sausage gravy in town.
He comes here morning after morning because he believes in a God who tells us to love our neighbors.
My biggest fear is coming in here one morning and finding her. That bothers me. But I don't want her to be here by herself either. And I've come in here in the mornings and she would be on a ladder.
And so he is the one who is here, who shows up. One of his daily jobs, one of his acts of love, is to simply move Mrs. Mayu's car to the other end of the parking lot to make room for the crowd that is about to arrive. But even when they get here, no matter how much they enjoy the food, maybe something is lost on them. Few know that the first meal served today, and this has been the case now for the last decade and a half, is between this woman in her 80s and this man in his 60s. Because when we love our neighbors, sometimes they become like...
He's just like a son to me. He really is.
Well, she's my second mother, you might say. My mother died several years ago.
They become like family. I want to stay with that point for just a second, that final point. You know, a lot of us have titles that we're very proud of. We've all been called different names at different points in our life. And we probably cling to the title of mother or father, but listen to that. I don't think there's any greater title in the history of the world than someone calling you like my father, or like my mother, or like a son, or like a daughter. I think that's... I can't think of any more flattering phrase. And the sad thing is, as I was watching this and as we were putting that story together, I was reminded of the fact that twice in my life, 2 times, I tried to play that role for younger kids that came into my life. I tried to be like their dad. And I wasn't successful at it. In fact, one, I have no clue whatever happened to him. He just kind of disappeared and dropped off the face of the earth. And the other, maybe I hear from once a month. It takes a lot of love. It takes quite an amount of character to be like someone's mother or like someone's son. And so getting to know, for me, Mr. Akins and Miss Mayu has been something very, very much worthwhile. And my prayer for myself is that maybe God will give me another example to be like someone's dad. Next week, we have an interesting commentary on a woman who prayed to God and her prayers were answered. So why is she going to court? That's next week. I'm Doug Wahl here in Wilmington, North Carolina. God bless.